As MPs were due in Parliament to discuss a bill to raise taxes, hundreds of people took to the nearby streets to oppose it. But police wouldn't let them anywhere near. The police chief said they don't have permission. The protest organisers say it's their constitutional right.
Taxes are high. My mom just died from cancer, and we can't keep raising taxes on cancer treatment. You had them raising taxes even on donations. Women have no taxes are being taxed. We can't even afford diapers for the kids anymore. There are no vaccines in the hospitals for the children.
The draft bill included a reintroduction of VAT on bread.
Here to tell us all about it is Mr. PIGBIN Odimwengu. And I hope I said his name correctly. Good night, sir.
Good night. How are you?
I am doing good, and we are so happy to have you join us here in the Caribbean, in the region. We have people who are joining from, of course, Barbados, but Jamaica and Trinidad, and some who are in the diaspora in the U.S., etc. It's a joy to have you here tonight. Now, we're getting a little sense of where Kenya is on the map, all right? So, and I see the little cursor there, and that's over to my right, okay? Right there where you see the cursor is, that's where PIGBIN Odimwengu is at the moment. Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yeah, it's correct. You say pigeon or PIGBIN, there's no problem.
Pigeon.
Yes, pigeon.
So we are all the way over there in Kenya, in the east of Africa. Tell us what is happening in Kenya at this time, Pigeon.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, as I've said. And I'm privileged to talk to our brothers and sisters. I'll call them our lost brothers and sisters who were taken away from us to be far away. But with the help of the technology, we are not far away. We can connect and talk to each other. We look alike. You look like a sister from the other side in this country. So we are one people, and irrespective of our different spaces in terms of geographical positioning, it doesn't take away our common identity, our common origin. And with that, I am pleased and privileged to be here with you. I am a young, of course, progressive Pan-African in Kenya here, but I'm also active politically, having formed a political party that we are almost finishing up to have young people space to compete for political positions in this country.
Hold a minute, Pigeon. You're telling me you just formed a political party, all right? Now, Pigeon, I have 3 children, okay? 3 boys, actually. And one of them, I think he's about your age. But tell me, can you tell me how old you are? Is that okay for me to ask?
Yeah, but I was born in 1996, so probably I'm 28 or 29. But
so you're not even 30 yet. So you are 28 years old, and you are forming a political party of young people in Kenya.
Yeah, I started formation of my party in 2019 when I was 23 years old, right from the campus. And despite we got some few challenges in terms of resources, but I was not able to stop it. So we are back again to finish the process. 5 years down the line, we haven't finished, but I haven't given up on it. But it started in 2019. And when my party failed to be fully complete before the 2022 election, I went to the election as an independent presidential aspirant. I wanted to be the president of my country. By that time, I was age 26. And I was one of the youngest presidential aspirants. Of course, I had a running mate who was 52 years old who wanted to be my deputy president. And yes, I also got just some little challenges in terms of some documentations, not even in terms of finances, but some documentation that's what needed. So I didn't actually finish up to be on the ballot. We were around 57 of us, but I attempted to be on the ballot. By that time, I was actually working as an ordinary barber and a cobbler. So I was doing shoe repairs and also shaving in a barber shop.
It's at 23. At 23, you decided that you wanted to be the president of your country.
Now, that was at 26, 2 years ago.
26, I'm sorry, 26. And it was at 23 that you started the party?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. And you studied at the university. What did you study?
Now I'm a teacher by profession. I did history and Kiswahili language. So I still teach Kiswahili as a volunteer services of a Pan-African virtually every Tuesday in our class. So I teach Pan-Africans who want to learn Swahili virtually, but I didn't go to class to teach despite of having degree, because I decided to, it's like my thinking was far away from class to politics directly, because once I graduated, I went directly to politics.
Yes. So you studied history and you're a teacher by profession.
Yes.
And yes, a Pan-Africanist. But now let me also say to Barbadians that PIGBIN from Kenya, who is 28 years old, all right, he is also co-founder of Accountability and Transparency Party. He's the co-chair of Conscientism Philosophical and Ideological Group. He's a member of the Global Africa Congress. He's the chair of the Haiti Technical Working Group, researcher, and an educator. Oh my goodness, at 28 years old. This is what he's doing. And he was a protester in the recent protests there in Kenya. Now, can you talk to us about the issues surrounding the protest? Why was there a protest in Kenya? Tell us from your perspective. We're hearing it from BBC. We hear it from YouTube. Tell us, as a Kenyan, a young Kenyan, why was this protest in Kenya?
Thank you. And I'll have to start from the historical aspect of it. That in the election that was in 2022, which is the election that led to the either getting President Ruto to be the president of Kenya, there was already something like a revolution that was either by the low class or the so-called peasants, those who do ordinary job, those who ride boda, those who ride matatu, were actually rising against the so-called the rich class, which was either the dynasties. And it was a sort of a revolution which, of course, somebody like myself who was just an ordinary baba, who appeared to be the class of the low class, was actually in to lead my fellow people who do ordinary jobs. But then the current president actually came out from the rich class to join the poor class and gave his history that he was once a chicken seller who had no father in the politics, because the former president's father was the first president of this country. So he became the president, and the opposition leader, his father is the first deputy president of this country. So the current president was going against his big rival, who was the opposition leader, whose father was former or the first deputy president. So then the current president actually took that narrative that his family is not in any politics, and therefore he's an ordinary citizen who have got advantage to be in politics. And then he came to the poor people. He reasoned to the poor people. His slogan was to empower poor people, to work with the poor people, to create a government from the bottom up, those in the bottom going up. And that wave actually swept a lot. He got a lot of votes out of that narrative. And when he was elected in, many people could interpret that indeed Kenya attained a revolution by changing and making him actually being the first president who ever contested once from a deputy president directly to be the president. Now, many people who were the poor class celebrated a lot, especially the ordinary young people. They had parties, they celebrated around. Somebody like myself who was part of the presidential race, and we realized that we were knocked out technically out of an illegal requirement. He actually made us to object the election. So I didn't participate, and we asked for people not to participate because we felt the election was not fair. But later, after the election was conducted, there were claims that the election was interfered with, and either the results were actually rigged in favor of this president, and there were also accusations that the West might have been involved at that time to support William Ruto to be the president. That was the first phase of something appearing like a revolution of the poor class.
So let's summarize what you just said there. that just before the last election where President Ruto was elected, there was a kind of revolution that was happening between the classes, the rich and the poor. And the poor people, or the lower class, ordinary persons, they were rising up and, you know, wanting to lead and so on. And here comes Ruto and says, I'm really from the poorer class. And so he ran on that slogan that, you know, he's here for poor people and he's a champion for poor people. They went ahead and they put him in office. And people are a bit disappointed because they feel like he was pretending to be from you know, among the people of the ordinary class. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because of course it was clear that he was not ordinary, but I think because there was a desperation of citizens to change the so-called rich class through a narrative that was running, therefore they voted him in. Despite of this time, of course, he was now serving as a deputy president for 10 years as a vice president. And he has been in politics since 1997, which was close to 30 years being in politics, having had historical claims of corruption and either being also involved a bit in 2007, where he was accused, he was taken to ICC as being mastermind behind the post-election violence that took place in 2007. So people had already known his bad history. But I think because he appeared to be a lesser evil and he worked in churches with a lot of money, giving and donating to church constructions and church projects, the church embraced him as a better thief who gives than those who don't give. And this narrative also helped the churches to vote him in.
The churches helped to vote this man in, who PIGBIN is saying that he was pretending that he was from the poor people and he was for poor people, even though people knew that he wasn't, but he behaved as though, and so they believed that he was going to be for everybody, for the poor people. And he also started to give the churches a lot of money. And so tell me more about that. He gave the money to the churches, and did he speak at churches? Tell me about that.
Yeah, he could walk on every Sunday to different churches to give a lot of money and help projects of development in churches. And you could kneel down before the churches to be prayed for with his wife. And the churches could compare him with the main opposition, who was the former prime minister and the long-standing opposition leader, who is now going for AU seat. And they compared the two, and they said this one is a better evil, even though we know he might be evil, but better a thief who steal and bring to church than he who steal and doesn't bring to church. That is the narrative they used.
Repeat that. Better is he who steal and
brings to church.
And brings to church. Better is he who steals and brings to church than he who steals and doesn't bring to church.
That's what they were saying.
Oh, so the church people, so they took him in because he brought big offerings.
Basically, he bought the church. He corrupted or paid the churches and the pastors. So he bought the church. But at this particular moment, we must also understand that the fact that he was serving as a deputy president in the election that took place in 2017, him together with the former president, who were then the government, actually rigged that election. So the court nullified that election on 2017. Then the opposition leader refused to compete or participate in a repeat election. So the repeat election took place, and the current team of the president and his deputy, who is now the current president, won that election without the presence of the opposition leader. So almost over 50% of citizens boycotted that election. From that moment, the opposition leader then led to swear himself. The opposition leader swore himself as the people's president. So there was a division between two presidents in this country in 2018. And there was even a call to secede. So people wanted to secede to form their own country with the opposition leader. That led to what we call an handshake, which took place in 2018 between the former the current opposition leader and the former president. And when the former opposition leader got to the government through handshake, it means the opposition joined the government. And the person who fell and insecure was the deputy president, who is now the current president. So he was ousted, like he was ousted. He never accepted that coalition or handshake. So he decided to start campaigning against the current president and his new friend, the opposition leader, who the former president now actually fronted as his best candidate. The former president fronted the opposition leader as the best candidate. And then that's now where the deputy president, who is the current president, got the narrative that this is a son of the first deputy president and the son of the first president uniting to remove me as a low person who has no political history. So he created now that narrative to object the two families. But the former president warned majority of citizens that he knew the character of this president and that this president was not a right person to lead this country. So that is how we found ourselves with this president. So despite of serious warning from the former president, the citizens, including the citizens from the community of the former president, ignored the former president and decided to vote this person, who is the current president. Now, after he got in, he said very well that once he bring down the Bible, he will actually lower the cost of living. That was also very high towards that election time. The cost of living was high. So ordinary citizens also voted in with the hope that due to high cost of living, he will help lower the cost of living, which will then lower the burden to the ordinary citizens.
Okay, but, so when he got in, the promise was that he was going to lower the cost of living. Yes. Ah, I see now. You see, you're giving now. It's making sense. So the people, Kenyans, really bought into that.
Yes,
they believed him. Continue. It's making sense. Thank you.
That was in 2022 when he was elected in August. Then he never lowered the cost of living within 100 days that he promised. Instead, in those 100 days, he actually witnessed the swearing in of the around 6 judges who were stopped by the previous regime, who were to be believed to be corrupt. Within those 100 days, one of the remaining witnesses to his case in ICC, a lawyer called Gishuru, was assassinated or murdered.
So you're saying that within 100 days, there was he began to put in his cabinet some corrupt other corrupt politicians. He started to put them as different ministers in his cabinet. And then also you said that within that 100 days, he had a case. There was a case against him.
There was a historical case against him in 2007 of being accused as having been behind the post-election violence that took him to ICC, the International Criminal Court.
International Criminal Court. So he had a case at the International Criminal Court for something that he was alleged to have done in a few years back. It's 2017?
2007.
2007. And what was it that they said he had done?
In 2007, this current president was supporting the opposition leader whom he was competing with in 2022 election. So they were in the same camp as the supporter of that current opposition leader who was his main rival in 2022.
Oh.
What happened is that now the former president was in another side camp, and him and together with the current opposition leader were in one camp. So after that election, the two communities fought, and there were deaths of over thousands of Kenyans, and particularly his community, where he comes from, and his home yard, people were killed, including in church. People were burned in church in 2007, and therefore he became main suspect for what happened, together with the former president, whom they served the same government as president and deputy president. So that's how they were taken to court, and there was Kofi Annan intervened to actually have a government of coalition government. But their case went on until 2010. And then because they were victims of ICC, both this president and the former president, who were then working together, despite of them having different camps, but because they were victims, they decided to unite together despite of their differences. And that way, they campaigned and they were voted in as a president and a deputy president in 2013. That's how they got their union together to be a president and a deputy president out of the case victims that they were part of. And the many witnesses in that ICC case died and disappeared mysteriously. And their case was actually also stopped mysteriously. but there was still a witness who then went to ICC before elections of 2022 to give witness or statement in regards to this president. And that's why when he got in, within a month time, that witness, who was the last witness standing, who was a lawyer, actually was found dead. And this was believed to having been either his play to this.
Wow. So now this explains why the people would have been so angry. So one was that he campaigned as being the poor people's president, right? He campaigned under that slogan that he's gonna lower prices, it's gonna make things affordable for people, lower the cost of living. And then 100 days he promised that he would do it in 100 days. It wasn't done. And then, that lone witness that is there. The allegation is that, well, nobody knows. The lone witness to what he would have done, what he's accused of. In 2007, that lone witness was no longer. He died. We can't say what happened, who did it, but he died. Wow. So you have given us a good backdrop, and the churches were supportive because he would bring offerings to the church and so on. Okay. So that is it. So you're saying he bought the churches, basically bought all the churches. Interesting.
Yeah, so he brought a narrative later on when he failed to deliver what he wanted in 100 days, that the former government emptied the coffers. So there was no money left in government that he could actually use to help develop or bring forth the agenda that he wanted to put on table in 100 days. But people also ask him, you were part of the former government. How could you not know that there was no money left? But then he later on went to some stylish lifestyle, whereby he wanted to appoint more permanent secretaries than the previous regime. And within some few days, their expenditure were high. And actually, we asked them if there was.
I have to stop you. You don't even know. You are basically speaking our blueprint, guys. Everybody who is on, isn't he speaking about what is happening here under the Motley administration? Did you hear what he said? That they now started to. The large ministerial team, right? The cabinet is larger than normal, right, Pigeon?
Yes, the permanent secretaries were too much than the previous regime, but also he decided to be more tribal. So in his cabinet, there were people mainly from his community and the community of his deputy president. So those are the people who occupy a lot of positions, which then appear to not actually. The ordinary citizens expected themselves to be also in the government because they were told this is their government of the poor. So some poor people who are either selling kales, whom we used to talk about, expected they might be in the government. But we saw some corrupt, rich citizens who is his friends who are then appointed as ministers. Some people who did not have even education qualification or who never had any integrity purposes. And then their cases, most of them had also cases in courts, and their cases were all withdrawn by the prosecutor, director of prosecution. So each cases was being dropping daily as they were now appointed to the government. And this was the symptoms of now the start of the betrayal, which people feel like the betrayal in the city.
The pictures that we saw over the weekend and a couple of days before will now make sense to us. So we now have, the backdrop and the understanding of what happened. Promises were broken. He was supposed to be the president of the poor people, and made promises and did not deliver on those promises, put his friends in position, and had an oversized cabinet, and with a lot of high expenditure for the Kenyan people.
He equally promised during his campaign that we cannot borrow loans and that we will depend on ourselves and that we will ensure that we cut on expenses. Those are part of the things he was promising. But eventually, he started borrowing loans. And beyond loans, he started being an online president. An online president means he's a traveling president.
Barbados, did you hear? Did you hear what this young man, did you all hear this? And we have the pictures of the Kenyan Prime Minister, President, and our and the World Economic Forum, all the international bodies. They lift up these two, Mia Motley and the President of Kenya, and they say, look at these two. I have the pictures there. I wish Dave could find them. The Kenyan president and the Prime Minister of Barbados. And do you hear what he said? What got the people angry? He became an online president. Repeat that, man, Pigeon. Repeat that.
Yes, as I say, is an online president meant that he was a president on air. He's never appearing. He comes to a country for one day, he left to the next country, another day to the next country. So he's a tourist. And in fact, some of us believe that he should be Minister of Tourism than being a president, so that he could be walking up and down, or a Minister of Foreign Affairs so that he could be doing his foreign issues. So he actually, like now, he has traveled for 66 travels in the last 21 months. While the former president traveled for 33 trips for 10 years, but he has made 66 in 21 months.
In 10 years, say that again slowly. In 10 years, the former president traveled how many times?
33 times.
33 times. And in how long did he? So
21 months.
Years, in 21 months, he traveled 66 times.
Yes.
And this one traveled to and the other president traveled in 10 years 33 times. Do you see the similarities, Barbados? And if you go online, I'm going to try to find those links tonight that I have here for you to see how they were, the UN international bodies, the World Economic Forum. They praise Prime Minister Mia Motley, and they praise President Ruto, and they say that these are the champions of the whole environmental issue, that these are the champions here. And look at what is going on. Isn't it similar? I want you to follow this story, but watch what the Kenyans did.
So in 2013, early year of February and March, citizens could not take it anymore because they could not see life or cost of living going down. The liter of petrol moved from 150 shillings to almost 210 shillings in his government. The dollar rates when the former president left was at around 120, and this president moved it close to almost 170 to 80, and the cost of living was moving high. So the citizens decided to do the first protest, which took place in 2013 around March. And in this protest, it started with the citizens calling for cost of living to go down, which he promised he will take down, but didn't go down. And then the opposition leader joined the protest to bring now the political ambition. So the opposition leader took advantage of the citizens' protest. Then he came in to lead that protest. And in that process, for around March to around July 2013, many young people were shot by the government and the police officers, and thousands of them disappeared, and thousands of them were killed. And the opposition leader and other politicians also were actually insecure because the state was going in full blow to attack them. Yes. And this then led to the stalemate, which then led to a dialogue between, now that's what I want you to clearly understand. 2013, the citizens, 2023, the citizens start to go on the street like we start today, but they went as citizen-led protests where the citizens were campaigning for the cost of living. Then the politicians from the opposition get into this, hijack that protest, and then bring the political issue into it, which was not an economical issue. Then the government called for a dialogue to harmonize the issues. Then the politicians from the opposition appoint members, and the government appoint members of politicians who sit somewhere to discuss the way forward without the citizens who were on the protest. Then these people sit and come up with a report. They call it national, it was called National Dialogue something, where even I presented some proposals before them. But the citizens were hijacked in their own protest for cost of living. And the cost of living was not discussed by the politicians when they created this body now that was to harmonize the grievances. And up to date, that report has never been implemented, but they spent millions of our money to say that they were sitting to discuss our issues. And therefore, the opposition also failed the citizens or took advantage of the citizens and betrayed them in the 2013 protest. And that's why you'll understand this protest today do not want politicians. The young generation do not want politicians today. Now, after even the two parts coming in, then there was an issue whereby towards the start of this year, now the opposition leader announces that he wants to run for AU and that the government is now supporting the opposition leader candidature for AU. Basically, that is interpreted in Kenya as the opposition leader joining government, and therefore there's no active opposition leader. Then this leaves citizens hopeless or clueless without now depending on political class. So that's why they want to lead themselves, because there's a gap in opposition, by opposition leader giving in to government demand to get to be supported for AU ambition, which to me, I have said it before, the AU ambition for the opposition leader in Kenya is a US-backed process and project, because at the time then there was a stalemate between two sides. The US visited Kenya. There's a governor in US, Colin, I don't know, it's called Colin, who has been used towards the handshakes or bringing peace. He visited Kenya and he visited the opposition leader. Foreign diplomacies were also here, diplomats, to talk with the both sides so that they can come together. The former president of Nigeria, Obasanjo, I think Obasanjo, he came over here, and then they said that the opposition leaders declared interest to go for AU. Well, we must understand, when the President Ruto was becoming a president, the opposition leader was head of infrastructure in AU, but immediately actually campaigned for him to be demoted and be fired from that position, just for him to come today to support the same opposition leader for AUC, which is African Union chairperson position, which is taking place in 2025. So that could tell you. And then he goes out to start campaigning for him, goes to the US, and now get these deals, including the Haiti deal for UN security. So all this shows both betrayal from also the opposition leader to the people. And the government has also betrayed the people from failing to fulfill their promises. Now, this is where we are coming in.
If you're joining us, you're just joining us, we have with us PIGBIN Odimwengu from Kenya. And he is basically giving us a history, really, of what has been happening politically in Kenya that would bring us to this stage here where we saw over the last couple of days protests in Kenya by young people, started by young people in the streets of Kenya. And he's giving us what would have occurred and would have caused these protests to be happening in Kenya at the moment.
Now, I'm getting to this protest today. Yes. But in the 2023, there's what you call a finance bill. A finance bill is actually a tax measure or a revenue collection measure that a government put in place after reading a budget. So that bill then ensures that government has tax revenue collection measures that can meet their budget deficit or to fund the budget. So in 2023 last year, the government actually brought a finance bill 2023. And this finance bill 2023 was increasing taxes to citizens. Citizens agitated and citizens protested, but they never protested to this level. But the government forced it, and it was passed and implemented. But even out of that implementation, there's nothing tangible that we've seen. There's nothing productive that we've seen, because the government said that they will pass 2023 finance bill so that we can be able to collect our own taxes and not depend on loans. But just for your information, the president borrows loan close to 1 trillion Kenya shillings in a year. Close to 1 trillion Kenya shillings in a year. So you increase taxation and also increase borrowing. Basically, what are you doing? How do you increase taxation and increase borrowing? And you tell us you want to be self-reliant. So citizens did not actually protest much, but they agitated against it.
Okay.
Now, 2024 today, the government raised a budget in June. And in fact, during the reading of that budget, one of my friends who was arrested tried to grab the budget briefcase from the Minister of Finance. And he was arrested, taken to court, and he protested his arrest. In fact, I went to see him in court last week when he was supposed to be brought to court, but he was taken for mental test, but later on he was released. So government reads a budget of 3.9 trillion with a deficit. Then they come with a finance bill immediately to try to address how they will raise tax. Now, the main budget is 3.9 trillion. And if you see how that budget is being spent, out of 3.9 trillion, only 700 billion is going for development out of a 3.9 trillion budget, which means the rest of 3 trillion is either recurrent expenditure, I don't know, loan repayment and such nonsense. So even in that big chunk of budget, and there was the revenue collection fell short because it was around 2.8 trillion. So we had a deficit of revenue collection of around 1 trillion.
1 trillion, okay.
Yes, so then the government is reading a budget of 3.9 trillion, and they now want to come with tax measures that can help them raise that revenue to support the budget. And that's now what comes to be called a Finance Bill 2024, that then propose rough measures of taxation, which actually made people agitated, include tax on 16% VAT on bread, now taxing things like eco-levy on sanitary towels or pads for women, including pampers for kids. And this is what now brings the agitation between many young women who are in the street in this current demonstration.
Oh, wow. It wasn't even there, and it's a whole 16%. So people are really mad on sanitary napkins, on pampers, you know, I guess toiletries that people use every day, right?
Yes, and the most interesting one is now on mobile, we call them mobile money sending, because in Kenya, we rely a lot on mobile transfer of money. So then the government want to tax mobile transfer. And you see, this is one of the picture being put. Can you see my screen? So basically what happens is that citizens start now to protest this taxation. And the key issue I've told you is on mobile tax. Mobile tax, Kenya use mobile money transfer. We are almost like a cashless society. So we are using a mobile system called M-Pesa. M-Pesa. So M-Pesa allows anybody, even in UK, to send me money via my mobile directly. And I'm able to pay my bus fare and everything in my house, including my rent, my everything via mobile M-Pesa money transfer. Now, for you to send 100 shillings, which is like a $1, the government was proposing that we send it with the 40 shillings, which is almost 40% of the 1 shilling. So you use 40% to send money, which you still go again and withdraw. And this is actually causing a serious problem to many of us. Many companies and investors even warned that if the bill passed, especially in such tax measures, they were going to shut down and move away to other countries. So this then creates a commotion, and many citizens are against this. Then you go ahead to propose tax in something like sugar, which we use commonly, and other tax measures that are in that financial bill. Now, this is what raises the eyebrow to many citizens.
There is an article that I read it this evening, but this was an article many Barbadians would remember when our Prime Minister attended, I believe it was a World Economic Forum meeting, and it was in France. And she went to speak with the French nationals, remember, and they were booing her because she was speaking. She started to speak about Macron and how great a man he was. It was at that conference when she was there that Ruto, the president of Kenya, and you can research it yourself, President Ruto and Prime Minister Motley, they were put before the world really as examples of great leaders This is what they said of them, the international agencies, the World Economic Forum, and all of these bodies. And they said that they were champions of climate change. And there is an article there that you will find. There's an article with the both of them. And they were championing President Ruto, who, by the way, you must understand that he was tapped by the international community to be that African nation to lead the troops into Haiti. Don't forget that. And remember the next country's name that was called after Kenya, before they called even CARICOM, was Barbados, because these two have been tapped by these international bodies as their puppets, the people that they're going to use to reach the people that look like you and I. It's Mia Mottley here in the Caribbean, and President Ruto in Kenya. And look, and I want Barbadians to see the similarities. It's very important. And this is why our Prime Minister went and set up, and they said it's a CARICOM, it's not an agency, and I'm trying to, an embassy in Kenya. Supposed to be CARICOM, but really it's Barbados. Barbados, because Jerome Walcott, the Honorable Jerome Walcott went down for the opening of it, and all he was talking about was Barbados. It is, I understand, it's supposed to be a CARICOM embassy, but it was initiated by Prime Minister Mia Mottley because Ruto, remember, it was supposed to have been in Ghana, and they made a switch to Kenya because he's more, I guess he's more compliant, and the others are, the international agencies have tapped him as well. So in Africa, you have Kenya, President Ruto, and in the Caribbean region is Mia Mottley. And you could go and you can research that for yourself. Ruto is a sky president, king of the skies. These two are like peas in a pod, and they're carrying out a similar function, which is why he cannot stay in, he's not in Kenya all the time. He's always flying. Look at it. He's called King of the Skies, people. Right? And we have a Prime Minister of the Skies.
We have a Queen of the Skies.
A Queen of the Skies.
I wanted to talk about this picture. The guy holding that placard is my friend also, and we do coordinate some of these things. He worked with a movement called Social Defenders Justice Coalition, or Social Defenders Coalition. And you see what he's putting in the placard is that Kenya is a proof that prayers cannot fix bad governance.
Say that again.
Kenya is a proof that prayers cannot fix bad governance. Yeah, this has significant information that is from my proactive Pan-African approach. This young man is called Comrade Anami Ture. Anami Ture is my good friend, and this was the day of the protest in front of a police officer. And this is a clear, resonating message to us Pan-Africans, where we have idealist Pan-Africans who are not materialist Pan-Africans. And idealist Pan-Africans tend to believe in spirits and ideas and prayers. And this is where this government came in from, by corrupting churches, buying churches, and by keeping praying for bad governance and everything else they do. They don't pray when they loot, but they pray when the looting takes place so that God can fix it. No God can fix anything that a man does deliberately. And let me also bring the perspective in Pan-Africanism in this, that then tie into his external tours. The problem within Africa or any black nation is internal. There is no God who is the problem, who is the cause of any problem in any country. There is no God who casts any black man anywhere to experience any bad governance or any corruption anywhere. And there is no God who will come from anywhere to fix the problem of of any black nation or any African country.
Why that is important is because this president, he visited a lot of churches, gave big offerings, always, go to kneel down to be blessed. A lot of the officials go to church. etc. And they use that to fool the people. It's not that you should not pray, but that if you have bad governance, you've got to fix it. You can't pray it away, right? You can't pray it away.
Yes, that is the problem in terms of where I come from. As you see, I'm a co-chair of a philosophical class where we believe that matter is the primary, and whether spirituality or prayers are secondary derivatives. God only helps he who works. You cannot sit in the house and they wait for God to bring food for you. You have to go out and look for food and then pray that God help you in that process. But here is a state that steal and expect God to fix that stealing. And this is also a wake-up call to churches or people who are trying to persuade us that, no, God will give us good governance, God will make things okay, he's a God person. That's bullshit and nonsense to many of African societies. And this is an excuse which is so lame when people run to God as an excuse to cover up their mistakes, which should not actually be the issue. We must work on our governance and then maybe pray that God help us, but not steal our resources and then pray God to help. How will God help the resources you are stealing yourself? So basically, this is trying to bring God in a situation whereby God is not involved in one way or the other. God is not helping you to steal our resources, to plant our resources, to fly out every time you want. Then now you want to bring excuses and hide behind churches. And that's why today, on this Sunday, young people occupied all churches and they told no politicians will speak in any church today.
The young people, what they did, these Gen Zs, you're talking about they had even primary school children protesting in Kenya, right up to above age 30. And what they did, they actually went in churches today. They took the protest inside of churches and mosques. I saw where politicians who were Muslim politicians could not speak in those in that mosque today. There was a woman, a politician, she had on the burqa, and the people shouted her down. She had to leave because they said you voted yes to that bill, that finance bill, and she had to leave. And they occupied the churches and told them, you will not come into these churches and speak today because you have been lying to us.
Let's go to the next picture because there's something I want to speak about that next picture. The picture that it was raised where a young lady was raising a placard. This one. This picture, the words here are written in Kiswahili, which is one of the famous language here. And the first word is musituuzie uoga. Don't sell for us fear. Hatuna pesa ya kununua uoga. We don't have any money to buy fear. So that's what that lady is written there. Don't sell for us fear because we don't have any money to buy that fear.
Okay, so repeat. You don't have any money to buy fear.
Yeah, don't sell for us fear. Musituuzie uoga. Hatuna pesa ya kununua uoga. Don't sell for us fear. We don't have money to buy fear.
Okay, don't sell us fear because we don't have any money to buy fear. Don't sell fear. Don't try to sell us any fear. We do not have money to buy fear. Wow.
Yeah. This is actually speaking to the heart of why most of our states and most of our situation as Black people is where we are, because we are controlled by fear. The fear of going against the system, the fear of facing a system and bringing it down. And this is why the young people are not afraid anymore. They were telling the police officers, don't bring for us tear gas. Send us bombs that can shoot us, not tear gas. And they were very clear that even if you kill us, you will not kill us all. So fear is what put us back. And the moment we overcome that fear is the only way we can start challenging and fixing our society. Because we are here where we are and we're going to die in fear than coming up and die strong and courageous, standing for our nation. And this is a clear message that was coming much here, that we is sarcastic. Of course, we are poor as young people. We don't even have money to buy fear, even if we have to sell it for us. We don't have money, we'll pay you to buy that your fear. So we don't afraid of you. And that is the clear message here. So we as a younger generation are not afraid. We are ready to come out. And in fact, the young people said they are going to take the identification cards of their parents on the date of elections and hide it because they believe their parents are the people who voted this problem. So they'll go vote with their own identification and hide the identification cards of their parents because their parents messed up and they never voted, but they're coming out to fix the problem.
They said they will hide their parents' registration, voter registration card. You all hearing how desperate and serious these people are?
We need to start politicizing our youth in the Caribbean instead of just giving them all that whack-up music and gunshot and kill who. Instead of keep pumping them with that, we need to start now pumping our youth, getting our youths more politicized. As you see the youths are in Kenya, you know, the youths know why they're doing what they're doing in Kenya. The brother, he's a young man and he's able to articulate the issues that's happening in Kenya. This needs to happen in the Caribbean. And Marcy, again, shows like this is the beginning of that politicization, because we need to get the youths involved, get the youth start to listen, because I don't know where else is happening, but I know that on the Marcy Week show, we could start that process of getting our youths ready to take control of their lives here in the Caribbean.
These protests do not have a leader. The government has been trying to look for who is the leader behind it to arrest. They've been doing some silent arrest of some people, but they realize that the citizens are not intimidated by this. There's a video, I don't know if I'll share it, where the Law Society of Kenya, the lawyers, decided to go out in the police cell where citizens were taken or arrested, and they protested demanding that they want to release those who were arrested. The lawyers, they wanted to release them on pro bono services.
They've arrested about 200, right? About 200 young people were arrested. And the lawyers are protesting that they free the young people.
The lawyers went in this police cell, the Central Police Center, to demand that the young people be released. In fact, even on Thursday when I was on the protest, the medics, the young nurses, set up a medical emergency center in a mosque next to the protest, and they were treating all protesters for free. And there were people who were donating water from the hotels and restaurants around, throwing water for citizens to actually help themselves. There's somebody who came up with a water pump, this one for agriculture. So anytime you are having some tear gas on your face, you pump on your face so that you can clear the...
And I read that today, that the doctors, they set up camps, makeshift hospitals, so that they can take care of the young people. When they put the tear gas on their faces, the doctors put the water on. They actually kidnapped one of the doctors, and the other medical doctor said, "We will not work in Kenya unless you free that doctor." The doctors were working. The lawyers were working. They were taking back their country, Barbados.
There was even one police officer who was helping the protesters with the water. The one police officer who was manning the protest, when some people were tear gassed, in fact, he gave out water to those who were tear gassed to clean their face. The same police officer. And there were also citizens who were helping the police officers who were also tear gassed to help them with the water so that they can clean. So it's more of like one of the peaceful protests that is bringing a true aspect of a genuine protest, whereby the people are helping the police officers are also helping the people so that they can overcome this problem, you see. But they were there under instructions to actually protect us or defend us from getting to the police cells. I remember when I left the protest, I was on my red beret, and I met a group of 6 police officers who were on the protest. And when I saw them, I wanted to hide my red beret, but I decided let me face them straight. And when I passed through them, they never did anything to me. They just watched my carriage or saw me how I was passing, and they allowed me to pass. So there was that aspect of people working in a peaceful coexistence. In fact, the young men even celebrated and played reggae music in the street until 10 p.m. the date of the protest on Thursday. To me, it was like a party to us. That demonstration was more peaceful, like a party. And we enjoyed it. It was so peaceful because we were inside, people were dancing, there were groups moving from this direction, somebody telling you, there was a proper seamless coordination. Move this side, go this direction, let's move forward, let's go down. All those were coordinated properly. And we were in a group of 30 per group. So that in case any police officer come in between, you have a solidarity team that cannot allow any of you go away. And there were numbers that were provided, hotline numbers for lawyers and medics. If you are arrested, call directly so that we can know where you are. And many people have been arrested. There's a picture I've shared with you, if it can be shared. Now, there was one person who was arrested, and when he was arrested, it was already circulating in all media protests, online. And in fact, the president of the Law Society went to release the young man from he looked for the young man. And anytime you are now arrested, the information go out quickly and people come for you. Now, this was online when the citizen decided to unfollow the president. The president was having 6 million followers on Twitter, but it has been reduced to 400 followers. People have decided to unfollow the president, and also people shared the contact of all members of parliament. You text them, tell your member of parliament all nonsense not to pass the bill. You send all threats that necessary to intimidate the member of parliament.
Wait, I want to say something here. The Kenyan young people use the digital space to protest. And that is what these governments are afraid of, Barbados. They are afraid of this. They're afraid of our laptops. They're afraid of the digital space. Did you see what the Gen Z did? Did you see what the young people did? And use digital protest. They went and said, unfollow. This is to unfollow. He had, how many followers he had?
Almost 6 million followers.
6 million followers, and they want this. All of them want the number of followers on their page. And they went and there was a campaign to unfollow the president, William Ruto. And look at it. He went from 6 million to how many followers?
He was having close to 400,000. But now, you see, they have generated back to 6 million, which is a generated number. People unfollowed him.
They went and did something, but the people brought it down to 400K.
Yes.
Right? And it's a power of social media. And that is why they want to pass the cybercrime bill, because if you did that with the cybercrime bill, you have caused embarrassment, you have caused humiliation, Barbados, you've caused annoyance, you've caused people's feelings to be hurt, and you could be fined $70,000 or go to jail for 7 years. And the Kenyans are able to do this in Kenya. Isn't this something? Go ahead, please.
No, look at the picture of the president before this picture. The other picture for the loan. This one. If you bring it close, the citizens have generated a public notice to inform the whole world that this is to notify the world at large that the person whose photographs and names appear above is not authorized to act or transact on behalf of the citizens of the Republic of Kenya, and that the nations and our future generation shall not be held liable for any penalties or bad loans negotiated in behalf or borrowed on our behalf.
This is to notify the world at large that the person whose photograph and names appear above is not authorized to act or transact on behalf of the citizens of the Republic of Kenya, and that the nation and our future generations shall not be held liable for any penalties or bad loans negotiated and or borrowed by him. This is the Gen Z protest. And this is what, and so you guys, the citizens created this and put this out. You think we could do this in Barbados with this cybercrime bill that they're trying to pass? This is a 7 years or 7 years or $70,000.
With us, we have freedom of expression, and we have that expression is guaranteed by the Constitution. So you cannot limit our freedom of expression in any way possible. And you have to go through legal processes because there's no way you can, unless you impersonate a person. But freedom of expressing what you want, or even picketing and sit where you want, is within the laws. And that's why you see we don't care. And that's why we revolt. We do all we want. We take their contacts. We send them messages. We send them threats. We go to occupy their spaces. We send the president away today in a church. We booed him. And we are looking even for a police officer. One police officer actually harassed the citizens. His number was shared on Twitter. And we texted him and texted his family. We even revealed where his wife is, the children are studying where, so that we expose them to be aware that we not allow them to bully us or intimidate us. We will expose them and reach out to them. Unprecedented event is that this is a magazine for tomorrow. They already is out. This is a newspaper for tomorrow. and it already says the revolt continues. But apart from this, when we shared the data, because somebody shared the contacts of all politicians, then the registrar of data protection decided to go on Twitter to say that it's against the data protection law to share the contacts of individuals. Then in that her Twitter line, somebody shared her contact just on the Twitter and asked the citizens to text her and also greet her, say hi to her. And she was intimidated because people told her that these are public officers and therefore we can reach out to them anytime. The information should be public. And that's how we greeted her. And we also, some people sent very funny messages to her until she went down because she wanted to actually curtail us, but she couldn't do that. But also a member of parliament house was banned. A member of parliament who voted for this bill, his home was banned just 2 nights ago. People bring down all his house and they were reduced to ashes. The speaker of the parliament is what they call turkey. He rears turkey, this animal called turkey. People went and eat some of his turkey in his homestead. They broke into the homestead and ate everything in his homestead. Yeah, so maybe to bring this towards the direction it's moving forward to, we still have a program that is running for this week. Tomorrow we are visiting the offices of members of parliament. One member of parliament, the citizen decided to take a coffin to his office to say that rest in peace because you have voted against us. So we are visiting all offices of members of parliament tomorrow to say hi to them. This is one of the protesters who was actually arrested, but we are still looking for him. He's yet to be released because we are looking for him, hunting for him where he was taken by the police officers, and we expect we'll get him and release him anytime. And on Tuesday, we are going back to protest, where we will be protesting because the bill will now be going for the third reading. So we'll be protesting again on Tuesday. And on Wednesday, we are collecting signatures to start impeaching some members of parliament who voted. You see this one? This one is saying drop a coffin for any MP who voted to the tax bill. So we'll drop them coffins in some of their offices so that they can know that we are not joking with them. So each of the offices will take for them some coffin to visit them with so that we tell them the rest in peace because we are not ready to be bullied by them. We are taking their coffin to their offices and we are starting the signature process to recall them and remove them from their offices.
In Kenya, you can recall these members of parliament. See, we can't do that in Barbados. So, when you take the coffins to their offices and it is assigned to them that your career is over, we are recalling you.
So basically, we prepare a petition and file a petition. Anybody can file a petition within the jurisdiction or the constituents of any member of parliament. Then you collect, the petition can be presented to the electoral body, which is called IEBC, the electoral body. Then you collect names and signatures of at least a third of the registered voters in that area. Then once you do that, then IBC prepare to conduct a nomination. Once you collect the signatures, you take to the electoral body. They'll verify that the signatures meet a third of the voters. Then they prepare for election, for a recall election or a recall vote. Once the recall vote is conducted, then we hold an election and a member of parliament is out. That's how simply we want to do it.
How many of them you think you're going to recall?
There are 215 who voted for this bill. 215 of them who voted yes. And we will start by, there's a group of many Kenyans who are doing this. We will start by seeing how we can recall them, but as an alternative measures, we are also preparing ourselves to be alternative leaders. Because our constitution allows anybody to be age 18 to go for any position. That's why I went for presidency at age of 26. So as long as you're age 18, you can even go for presidency. The constitution allows that. And the amount you pay for you to be registered as a voter, for example, for a member of parliament, for you to contest by the electoral body for a member of parliament, you can go as an independent candidate or a party candidate. If you go as an independent candidate, the electoral body, for example, for the position of a member of parliament, will only request that if you are a youth, you should only pay something to do the $100 only, and you get to be clear to run for that position. So apart from what we are doing is how do we prepare ourselves for the longer term? How do we prepare an alternative leadership to replace this bad leadership that we are fighting? Yeah. And that leadership should be within us, not outside us, because the leadership we have today is outside our graphics, and that's why they are doing much to us. So we are also reorienting, and that's why I'm trying also to push or position my political party so that Move 2027 we can be able to present that party to this younger generation who want to be the alternative leaders. Of course, the age alone do not guarantee you to be a leader, but that is the beginning of how do we now coach, because leadership entails about not only age, but now we want to prepare ourselves to be the next alternative leaders who can take over. Because as you remove this one, who do you replace? You can't replace the same person. You have to replace the different person, and that person must be either within you or outside, you see. But we can't now trust outsiders anymore. We can't trust a rich person who pretended to be poor just to actually betray us, and we can't pretend to trust anybody who never struggled with us in this struggle to come and help us. So that's the way we are taking this forward. But we have also been able to now attract international solidarity. Like in UK, there's a protest that will be going on in solidarity with us. And this solidarity is what we've been lacking. Because when I met the guy from Zimbabwe, the problem with black nations is that we take our problems to be our country problem. Well, we don't know that there's power on how we reach international globe, so that we create international solidarity. So that when there's a problem in Kenya, all black community across the globe should stand with the Kenyan citizens, because a problem to a black person is all our problem. But the moment we tend to pretend that this is Kenyan problem and you're silent, when it comes to Barbados, we'll also be silent. But the moment we create an international solidarity platform or solidarity force, then nobody will dare to actually belittle us or try to play with us. Because they know if you touch Haiti now, like where US is touching Haiti through Kenya, the whole globe should be objecting that, you see. But here is a situation whereby we leave each other alone. That is a Haiti problem. It's not a Haiti problem, it's a black people problem. And all black people, wherever they are, must come in. Your problem is my problem. And this is where we are creating a scope for international solidarity, which I think is a right move towards advancing Pan-African ideologies.
Yes, yes, thank you so much. That is really what we want, and we are here very concerned about the cyber crime bill, which I started to send you some portions of it, and I'm going to send that to you, and you can let some of the young people let them read and see what their brothers and sisters in Barbados, what they are threatening to do to us, what our Prime Minister, who is a very, very, very strong ally to Ruto, what they're trying to do with us here in Barbados. I want you to read that, and we can have some discussion on that, and how you can help us, and how we can continue to use this show to let people know about what you're going through in Kenya.
This is international solidarity plan. This is international. This is not local in Kenya. Like you see, on 23rd, which was yesterday, and today, 24th, there were deplatforming. What we call is deplatforming. We are leaving all Twitter space for all politicians. That was deplatforming. Deplatforming continues, where Kenyans across the globe are actually learning how they can build the finance bill impact, but also we are having Twitter spaces that we do online. But apart from that, we are also leaving or unfollowing the politicians who voted towards this bill. But there was also so many Twitter spaces going on. Like there's a one that took place yesterday, and the secretary to the president joined that Twitter space with the president account. And actually, he was chased out of that. Some minister was called by young people out of that Twitter space when they joined. So that took place as a conversation that was going on. But now there will be a march in Europe, London, where Kenyans will be joining that march. And all black people from Europe can join us on that. This is the march that will be taking place in UK, because we also believe that this finance bill that was set to us was actually drafted by IMF. This finance bill and the whole budget is IMF project in Kenya. So that is what will be going on in international scope. And there's also now, we'll also be doing a launch of global fundraiser to support families of the protest victims. And like today, you are saying the doctor who was arrested actually managed to mobilize around over 10,000 pounds within a day that was sent for that. The young man who lost his life, the family, we donated some money to take care of everything from a young people's pocket. That was done. Kenyans in London and Netherlands will also be marching to the embassies and The Hague, so that we call for international justice to what's going on here. So that is the international scope. There's also a program for what is running locally in Kenya. People even don't know who they draft these posters, but once they are drafted, we just share them online and we follow them. Even me, I don't know who draft them, but we follow them. Once it is out, we just follow the program. Yeah, I wanted to bring the angle I'm taking from a Pan-African scope in regards to Haiti thing in the presence of the minister or from a minister, so that we can also understand this. Because as I've said, I am a co-chair of a philosophical class, and we meet every Thursday. It's called Conscious and Study Group. We meet every Thursday to read the philosophy. That's a book by Kwame Nkrumah. And we've been reading this book for the last 2 years, and we engage in a robust discussion, a paragraph by paragraph. Then out of this, we had a presentation on the history of Haiti for 2 sessions on Saturdays to understand the past, the present, and what the future hold for Haiti. We had, in fact, even a guest who came in. There's a Sister Colette, and then Sister Colette, an experienced journalist from Haiti, who joined us. Then we took an approach from our class level on how do we set up a Pan-African technical working group for Haiti, which I actually fronted in, because we realized that the government of Kenya took what you call a political move to send the police officers in Haiti, but there's a need for the same Kenya and concerned Pan-Africans to take a true solidarity move to stand with Haiti. And we are working on a program whereby we have technical groups that deal with what you call an environment level, where we are thinking on how can we bring various environmentalists to plant a tree both in anywhere the diasporans are and in Haiti to donate one for Haiti, because we believe the tree is a symbol of a new life. And from the African Union anthem, let Africa be the tree of life, we are approaching environmental issues because we've also checked the environmental, the forest scope of Haiti, and we've realized that there's a lot of foreign companies in Haiti that exploit the environment for their benefit and leave Haitians without any proper future. So we are thinking of, yes, trying to mobilize for resources for food, but food resources are short-term basis. What about the long-term that can then replenish back the forest level of Haiti so that Haiti can sustain itself? And that is an approach we are taking through our technical working group for Haiti, which is on environment. But we are also thinking on sport level. How do we have a football match for Haiti with the legends being remembered for Haiti? We are planning how we'll have a golf. We are planning how we'll have a run and a walk for Haiti, just to sensitize people about Haiti and mobilize resources that can come in through these sports to take to Haiti. And this is what we are planning to take place in around January in Kenya here. But there's already also a concert organized at the start, because we understand the Haitian Revolution started in August to January. So there's a concert that's already organized that will take place in Kenya here on August that will engage the same thing as the start of the process. And by January, we'll be ending up with sports as well. That is an approach we took, and I participated in that as a chair at my age, of course, to try to bring a different aspect on how we bring international solidarity with each other. And how do we put programs that can enable you to stand in solidarity irrespective of where you are. You can even plant a tree in your own compound, but that is in memory of what you planted to stand in solidarity with Haiti. And that is an approach we've taken. And we are doing more, like now we also, like today I was chairing the whole part of the morning, a technical working group for Pan-African liberation aspect. We've looked at our economics, we've looked at our education, we've looked at our healthcare. We are still not yet liberated as Black people. So how do you put a raft measures to come up with a common policy framework that then can be a blueprint on how Africa can liberate its healthcare, its education, so that in a year time we can produce a template that then we can advocate for its implementation, because we need uniformity. And that's why even I spend much of my time on Tuesdays to offer to teach Kiswahili, which has more of African origin, to all Pan-Africans for free, so that we can also be united via language, because language is a carrier of culture. And the more we practice their language, we embrace their culture at the expense of our culture. So these are part of also extra activity I'm involved in a Pan-African scope, just to push the Pan-African agenda.
Theory, thank you for coming on. How old are you, Theory?
I'm 21 years old.
So Theory is 21 and Pigeon is 28, okay? What are your thoughts? What do you want to say to your brother Pigeon in Kenya?
Well, I'm extremely impressed by the movement, because here in Barbados, we're having a challenge with my generation, basically, you know, being outgoing and trying to stand up for something in terms of the cybercrime bill and other issues. They will speak about it and they will say that, well, they disagree, but no one's actually going and protest with the marches that we have. So I'm very impressed. I'm very inspired. I'm taking notes of the actions that y'all are doing, because it will happen. And I know my generation, something, the government's going to try something, and they're trying the cybercrime bill at this current moment. And knowing my generation, they're going to retaliate, and they're going to try to protest and basically respond. No, we want it to be in a peaceful manner, but some of my generation, you know how they are. That's the truth. But the reality situation, we're looking at you, and I'm looking at you as a young leader, and all y'all, in terms of how y'all approaching it, and when the time comes, because it will come, how will we go about it in a peaceful manner?
Oh, thank you. I'm impressed by my fellow comrade, and you see, one thing I've done in my life is that I've always tried to overcome my fears. And when you say that people know what is wrong, I think there's a level of, for a revolution to take place, there's a need for what you call social circumstance, what the environment for a revolution must be there. But there's also an aspect of consciousness. So the environment can be viable, but what is the consciousness of the people? And then if the people are conscious and there's a good environment, then that now will connect thought and action, so that the thoughts and consciousness will lead to action. And what is the action? The action can be what now the young people of Kenya are doing. But beyond that action, there's a big need for what you call a strong ideological basis, a solid ideological basis. Because young people have spent their time to lead various so-called revolutions, which turn out to be not true revolutions. Like what happened in Sudan, when the young people in the street to replace a government just to get themselves out of the same government. What happened in Kenya, when the young people decided to vote Ruto as a young government and poor people government just to get themselves out. So the need for a strong ideological basis that then push what is our real purpose here. Our real purpose is by goal and objective to see the welfare of our people being advanced, not who is in power, but the well-being of our people is very important. Now, if we go away from that, then we might join as young people in the revolution just also to enjoy the power, not actually to work and serve the welfare of the people. So we just want to revolt because we want to be the next leaders. But why would we want to be the next leaders? So we end up then actually turning to be the same people we are fighting against. And that's why there's a need for us to back ourselves with a strong ideological basis or solid ideological basis that then become our principles. That then even if we go somewhere, we cannot change. Because they'll tell us, many people tell us, you're a young person, you're speaking this thing because you're poor. When you get in there, you'll shut up. You see, that is basically because they think that we are not grounded in a strong ideological position. And we have seen this. Young people who say they are young, they get in, they forget about the young people. There's a young lady who was elected at the age of 22 as a women representative in Kenya here. But she voted yes for this bill. Despite of her age, she voted against the people. That tells you that if we push this position for revolution, the need for a strong ideological basis as our guiding principle must be there with us, so that that becomes our compass to our execution. Because if we miss our compass, we will miss our direction. And that is the first thing we need to know. But also the challenges from our young people is that we must not make it hard for the younger people to execute the revolution. Like now the young people are in the state of Kenya, they are not being paid by anybody else. They are sacrificing the little money they have. Like the young man who was shot, he was only having 50 Kenya shillings, which is $0.5, just to take him in town for demonstration. He never knew how he will come back home. The attitude of younger people to start funding our revolution is very important, and stop depending on our change to be funded by somebody else. Because if our change will be funded by somebody else, then it will never be for our advantage. It will be for their advantage. So we need to sacrifice and now create a community to support each other. When we go for example, political positions, the young people expect you maybe to have money the same way with the old people and distribute money for you to be elected in. We must sacrifice, and we must commit some little sacrifice to support each other irrespective of what it takes for us to have the change we want. because we cannot go through the same process, but it takes us now to sacrifice. So one thing I'll tell my comrades is that the courage to do a change is very important. Because in my life, when I started political ambition, I've never been elected anywhere, but I decided to go for presidency because I realized that the problem is on the top. Some people tell me start with the county position, move up as you move up. I don't prescribe to that narrative that you must move up as you move up. The end of the day, if I know the problem is at the top, why do I stick down here? Because how many years will it take me to move up to change the problem? Because now, for example, the bill that is before the parliament is from the president, not from the politician. He's pushing it to the politician to pass it. So it means the problem starts from the top. When I decided to be crazy enough to write my letter to apply for the African Union chairperson position, which I did, and went to the State House of the president and sent the letter, they ignored my letter, and they were thinking I'm mad enough. When I was running for presidency, I was just doing a shoe repair and barbershop. Some people say, you're a madman who doesn't have money. Why do you go for these positions? But it must be inspired by your personal experience. What hardship have you gone through? And that is what should push you up. Not your physical money or when the connection you have, but the inner drive to move forward, then actually supersedes everything else. So what I can tell the younger people in Barbados is that nobody will make you wake up. And no time will be enough for you to start making a change. Use the little we have. The young people of Kenya are using the data they have not to watch Netflix and do what we call showmax and do what we call series. They're using the data they have to do activism on social media. And they're using the little money they have to go in the streets to push for what they want. That is the direction we as a younger people must reach at, where we overcome our fear and know that we can drive our change without any support anywhere. That's what I can say.
As a young person, how would you suggest to me to galvanize my generation to see the problems in our country and actually protest against it?
Oh, thank you. The simple thing is that the message is the most important thing. The message, not the money, is the message. So how do you package a proper message that resonates with the people? Because no matter how much you have, if you don't have a proper message that resonates with the people, you cannot win the battle. You see, William Ruto, as I've explained here, decided to craft a message that the poor people are fighting the rich people. And irrespective of him being rich, the poor people are convinced and followed him. You see, the younger people are today rising up on a message. So if you have a message, like for example, I'm hearing the cybercrime bill that is coming up, they need to expose to the people what advantages and disadvantages is going to make the people and what challenge. Because you see, there's lack of information. Yes, we are educated, but are we informed on the governance or the government of this beast? We are not. So if you don't have information, and that's why they say information is power. When you tap the right information to the right ear, it will just have its own ripple effect. So it's a matter of using the little space you have, not even physical, but the little data you have, or engaging in this social and take advantage of this or digital space like Zoom and the rest. Let people understand the message and let the younger people realize that it is them to save themselves. If they don't do it, it is going to be very hard. So the message is the most important thing, because package the message, then find a means to send it. And with the digital era, the means to send the message is not that expensive, unlike before. We can do it anywhere.
Well, what's occurring right now is that in the digital space of younger individuals, we are more concerned with the prices of goods here, and it's in relation to what's going on in your country. We are very concerned with the prices of goods here in Barbados. But what my generation is doing is they are making review videos about it, but they're not like upset. Like they're upset, but they're not trying to be galvanized to the point where they're protesting against it or they're putting petitions against it. Like a couple years ago, we had a problem with CXC, and a lot of students went straight to CXC Hill and they said, no, this is enough. We need better, right? And we've not seen that in amongst my age group since then. We've not seen it, right? And there's a lot of issues going on. The cybercrime bill, in reference to what you've been saying with respect to the finance bill, as we call it, the appropriation bill here, the policy part of it, my generation is not interested in that at all. We're not. But when we actually feel something and we've experienced how it hurts, then we react.
You see, the demonstration in Kenya today is led by young people in colleges. In fact, the university students. Just to be honest with you, the majority who are in the street demonstrating are the university students today. And even before, during 1980s, the people who protested to change change the clause that then brought popular democracy were campus students. There's what Nkrumah says that we seek education, but there are categories of Pan-African who seek education for different purposes. There are people who seek education just to create a class for themselves, what you call elitism. So you seek an education to differentiate yourself with the society. So you become an upper class. You are learned people. You don't interact with the people. So your education becomes for your personal growth and for your personal status. There are people who seek education for the purpose to advance or join a class or a league of somebody, what you call either the conservative or the liberal state. But Nkrumah says there are people who seek education for clear purpose of national emancipation. An education that you get educated for should be for the purpose to emancipate yourself, should be to help you fight for your own liberation. So that's why the younger people or the people who seek education, like people in the campuses, they understand what it takes when the bills are passed forth. And out of the understanding, they come out to now emancipate themselves and emancipate the community because they have some understanding to help the community. So education should be for the purpose of liberating the community, not for your purpose to join a certain class and be the rich class or the rich kid or the rich whatever, but to join a community to help the community move forward. But this is not what you see everywhere. People who are doctors, people who are lawyers, don't even help the community. They only grasp money and still take from the community by charging community expensively for them to enrich themselves. That is the difference of the people we have. But as you're saying, yes, the younger people, like what scenario you're saying when there was that issue when the younger people went to the street. Now, how is that serious compared to what these bills that are being passed are going to cost your life and livelihood? You realize that the bill you're talking about, cybercrime, is going to affect a lot of spacing in terms of your freedom and even economic growth. And if you realize the appropriation bill you're talking about, it's going also to affect your total income. This might be more serious than even what took the younger people to the street. But how do you galvanize the message to make the same reaction that took place before? And that talks of a serious study on what takes place, how was it initiated, and how it helped people to go out. So what I will say basically, like what sprang out today in Kenya, it was not expected. Just somebody decided, let's go. And a poster was circulated the way I've said here. And people went out. So you need to start small. It will not be once a mega demonstration. I've led a demonstration in my community here with 10 people. I've walked myself for a demonstration to town for over 11 kilometers, agitating alone. So it's not a matter of the number of the people you have, but you can start it. The journey is being joined by more people as you move along. So don't look at who and how many people should come in, but rather push the agenda. And the true message you push, people will join you along. And I've seen people joining. Like these demonstrations in Kenya are growing daily. Next week, we're expecting it to be huger than anything else. So just start it. As long as you have a right message, people will come on. And young people should come out from online the way they came out from Kenya to physical. Because online, we can talk of anything. But actually, there need to be a physical action to push something to be a reality. Sister Marcia?
Yes.
Just as I've explained to you the history of where we are today, the revolution or the demonstration in Kenya did not start today. I've given you an historical activity that have taken place that led to this. So yes, it cannot be a one-day thing that sparks. It can be sometimes, but it cannot be a one-day thing that sparks the revolution. So it will take a time and it will take a process. We must just be patient, but to build on it slowly. Second thing, demonstrations or protests sometimes are not the final solutions. And we must move beyond that to think on how do we advance our grievances beyond the streets. The streets, yes, are a good way to start our protest, but the solutions are not in the streets. The solutions are beyond the streets. So how do we have an alternative package to offer solution beyond the street? Because many people have stayed in street demonstration over a period of time, which is of course dangerous, and sometimes it also push our life into some serious threats But the street is not the end. The street is the beginning of a journey, which you must prepare to think beyond the street. For example, today I was telling you, if yes, the government decide to come down, will we form a next government in the street? What is our preparation beyond that? You see, what is our next course of action? So those are things that we really need to work on and think of them critically.
I as an individual who deems myself to be as humble as I could be, wants to learn from what they're doing and find a way how we can implement it here in Barbados, because it's necessary. Because if this bill passes, and I pray to God it doesn't, and I know it won't, but at the same time too, it's dangerous, and I don't want any person in my age group or beyond to be charged under it. It's heinous, and they could go all through the vocabulary to describe it. It's just retarded. It's stupid, and it needs to go. Right? It's a mistake that the government made, and their egos are not allowing them to say, "Hey, we made a mistake." The only admission was when the honorable Minister Marsha Cadell, she said, "Well, remove from saying if you say something false, keep true. Sorry, remove true and keep false." That's what she said. Basically, we need to remove the word true, since it's a big issue in the public sphere. So this government is based on ego. They believe they have the solutions, and we must shut up and follow. And that cannot be the case.
Yeah, what I want to say before I end is that we are brothers and sisters, irrespective of our distance. And we must come to each other as a family. So my problem is your problem, and your problem is my problem. You are not white because you are there. You're not. Even if you might be towards the same region, but you're not. And therefore, we as a people must now build the bond between you where you are and we where we are in Africa here, because you are Africans who are away from home. And my final remark is that let's see each other's brothers and sisters. Let's extend true love to each other, because we are one family, just in different places. If we do that, we can honestly come in support for each other and in aid for each other. So that's what I pray for. We are family. And we are not actually who they want to make us be. We don't belong to those colonial territories they make us to be. We are Black people and Black family, and wherever we are, we must come in support for each other. And that's what I pray for, because one day, I know one day, if we unite, we will go back and stand strong as a family. Thank you very much.
Subscribe for more content.